Step back three. Oh, she hit it and draws the foul. Welcome back, Caitlin Clark.
I always wanted Geno to call me just because he's Geno. Like, he's one of the best coaches of all time.
If you're a college player and you're a great college player, like Caitlin was, the delusional fan base that follows her disrespected the WNBA players by saying the disrespect that they've shown to the WNBA. There's a huge target on this kid's back. Okay, this kid's coming into the league. And Diana said it best. This kid's in for a rude awakening.
Like Geno Auriemma could be the reason why Caitlin Clark is definitely not joining the unrivaled 3-on-3 basketball league.
Revenge is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it shows up calm, calculated, and deadly quiet. For Caitlin Clark, payback was never about clapping back online or throwing shade in front of cameras. She played it colder than that. One choice did all the talking. She declined the call. She turned down Geno Auriemma. She walked away from UConn's history, its reputation, and a 7-figure offer that suddenly appeared after years of silence. Legendary UConn women's basketball coach Geno Auriemma is an investor in Unrivaled, the new 3-on-3 women's basketball league founded by former UConn Huskies standouts Nafisa Collier and Breanna Stewart. The UCONN Mafia flexing its influence once again in the world of women's basketball. To most people, it made no sense. 8 weeks of basketball for more than $1 million sounds like a no-brainer. That kind of deal usually gets signed before the ink dries. But this offer was never just about money. It was a rescue rope for someone who once overlooked her, minimized her, and treated her like she was never that important.
Like I said earlier, they actually had odds that, she was like 3rd or 4th in the betting odds to be MVP of the WNBA. That's such a slap in the face to every WNBA player. It's unbelievable.
By saying no, Clark did not just reject a contract. She stripped away his leverage. That is why this moment matters beyond the court. This is not a highlight reel story. It is about control and who holds it. For decades, Geno Auriemma sat at the center of women's basketball, deciding which players mattered and which ones faded out. His program shaped careers, and his approval was seen as everything. Caitlin Clark proved it was not. She built her own momentum without his system, without his voice, and without his resources. When he finally reached out, the roles had flipped. The power had already changed hands. Her response said enough without saying anything at all. She did not need the connection anymore. Every revenge story traces back to a single mistake. Geno's mistake was not tactical. It was personal. He underestimated her.
That's the worst part about new fans. They have no perspective. There's no context. So they just say ridiculous nonsense.
Long before sold-out crowds and record ratings, Clark was simply a young player chasing an opportunity. She even said it herself. UConn felt like the dream destination, the dynasty, the place where legends were made, the highest level of the game. For a young player growing up in Iowa, it did not get bigger than UConn. That was the dream. When recruiting season arrived, everything seemed lined up perfectly. The most electric talent of her era linking up with the most powerful recruiter the sport had ever seen. On paper, it felt inevitable, but reality hit different. The phone never rang. Geno did not call.
I wanted UConn to recruit me. I always wanted Geno to call me just because he's Geno. Like, he's one of the best coaches of all time. Geno never called me.
He did not reach out to Clark. He did not contact her parents. He barely passed along interest through an AAU coach. For someone known as the ultimate talent spotter, the silence said everything. That silence was not accidental. It was deliberate, and it sent a message that could not be ignored. She was not a priority. The excuse came later. UConn already had Paige Boers locked in, and Geno claimed he did not want 2 point guards. That explanation might have sounded reasonable at first. Then came the part that crossed the line. Geno suggested that if Clark really wanted UConn, she should have called him. Let that sink in. A coach whose reputation was built on chasing generational talent decided she was not worth a phone call. Then he turned around and blamed a teenager for not pursuing him harder. That was not just a recruiting miss. That was a clear sign of disrespect, the kind that stays with you. Clark did not make noise about it. She did not complain or campaign for attention. She simply remembered it. If Geno did not believe in her, she would find a place that did. That decision led her to Iowa. No dynasty banners, no automatic spotlight, no borrowed prestige. To outsiders, it looked like settling. To Clark, it was freedom.
Who would have thought that all those years ago, back in Des Moines, Iowa, that this would be the case right now? And obviously we can see that it's done pretty darn well, and people are excited to see her play at every level.
At Iowa, she was not Paige's backup plan or Geno's forgotten option. She was the centerpiece. The program was hers to carry. From the moment she stepped on the court in Iowa City, everything shifted. Those deep logo shots were not just highlights. They were statements. Packed arenas were not hype. They were confirmation. Record-breaking TV numbers were not luck. They were proof. Every bucket she made added pressure. Every viral clip, every record shattered, sent the same quiet message: you let this slip. While the numbers piled up, Geno chose not to reflect. He doubled down. Instead of respect, he leaned into dismissive comments. He brushed her off with smug remarks, calling her a kid, saying she played like she was just messing around in a driveway. Rather than recognize a once-in-a-generation force, he tried to shrink her game into something casual and small. But small does not fill Madison Square Garden. Small does not pull women's basketball into the mainstream. Small does not rewrite media deals or shift the culture. And that is where the irony hits hardest. Geno shut the door when Caitlin Clark knocked. He assumed she would blend in, become another solid name that faded with time. Instead, she built the biggest brand the women's game has ever seen, and she did it without him. When he finally came back around with a contract in his hand, Clark did not lash out. She did not celebrate. She did not explain herself. She said no. That single word cut deeper than any postseason loss.
Now, there's a lot of investors in this league. One investor, been trying to keep quiet about, his investment in the league ever since his comments that he made about a young rookie. Pretty much, had him in the headlines for about a month and a half. That is Geno Auriemma, dog. I'm here to tell you, he's part owner of this league.
It cost him relevance, control, and the illusion that he still dictated the future of the sport. Still, Geno could not let go. Anytime Clark's name surfaced, he found a way to tie her back to Paige Bueckers. If Clark played fearless, Paige did too. If Clark connected with fans, Paige had already done it. This was not coincidence. It was positioning. By attaching Clark's rise to players from his system, Geno kept himself part of the conversation. But people caught on. Fans noticed, analysts noticed, coaches noticed. The act became obvious. Clark did not need comparisons or disclaimers. She was pulling crowds bigger than most pro teams. She was breaking records no one touched before. She was changing how people talked about women's basketball. And there was Geno, smiling for cameras, quietly gripping a throne that was already slipping away. Under the polished image sat insecurity, the kind that creeps in when attention starts drifting and there is no way to pull it back. Over time, the subtle jabs stopped being enough. Geno shifted from quietly minimizing Clark to openly targeting the people who stood behind her. For months, his approach had been criticism dressed up as analysis. Then came June of 2024. During an appearance on the Dan Patrick Show, he went too far. The Hall of Fame coach, a figure meant to represent the highest standard of women's basketball, did more than question Caitlin Clark's impact. He aimed his frustration at her supporters.